afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Welcome to this PVP press conference. With me this afternoon is former President and member of the Executive and Central Committee of our party, Comrade Bharat Jagdeo. He'll be making a statement after which we'll be taking questions. Comrade Jagdeo.
Well, thank you very much. I'm extremely happy that over the past couple of weeks, the People's Progressive Party has been campaigning and putting out a lot of its ideas about the future. I want to urge Guyanese to read the documents that we have put out so far. We have an excerpt from the manifesto that was published, I think, in all of the newspapers that outlines several of the policies that we intend to pursue once the PVP Civic wins the elections. Our manifesto itself will be launched this Saturday, and it will outline our vision for taking Guyana forward. Today, the President spoke extensively about some of the support that we will give to the private sector. I want to urge you to read his speech. It was made at the luncheon hosted by the GMSA, and you will see in his speech that he is focused on several issues that are of the major concerns to the private sector. Unlike what I believe was a rambling presentation by Mr. Granger, who spoke a lot about his travels in the interior, jaguars, jackasses, and a whole range of other things. The President was very focused. He spoke about improve financial intermediation so that we can reduce interest rates to the private sector. He spoke about using the tax system to get more development-type financing for the private sector. He spoke about cheaper energy, about other support infrastructure that will reduce costs of doing business in Guyana, as well as improving our global competitiveness. He spoke of the supporting policies, particularly macroeconomic and sectoral policies, and he spoke about reducing bureaucracy and security, and improve security for the private sector. 5 or 6 key elements and key concerns of the private sector. So I will urge you to read his speech or listen to it, because it would show you that the PPP is focusing heavily on its policies and its vision for the future. We believe we can do so because we have a strong track record and we are clear about where we are taking the country. And the opposition so far, their focus has been on corruption and, well, not much more. That's how we are corrupt. But very little else about policies. In fact, they have had some severe policy contradictions among different members of the opposition when they speak. So they're not even clear about that. Of course, they can't speak much about track record. So I'm very happy that we have shifted the campaign into that gear. Whilst we do speak a bit about their track record, a lot of our campaign has been about what we intend to do for the country. So we have made it clear, you can read this in the extract that was published, that we are going to establish special development funds for some regions where we have difficulties in creating jobs because they're agricultural based, particularly regions 2 and 6. We have made it clear that we plan to put in a price support system for the rice industry to assist farmers to get paid earlier and on time. We have outlined our plans for the rehabilitation of the sugar industry. We've spoken extensively about how we plan to expand housing and housing available to people. We have outlined the next phase in the growth of better health care to people, expanding primary health care to homes and family-based care, upgrading all of our institutions across the country with new equipment, moving to post-grad training of a lot of the young doctors who've come back so that we can improve better quality care. We have outlined a ton of other things. So I just would urge people, those who are still focused on the negatives of the campaign, to understand that we have been not just talking about the past or the present or track record, but we have been speaking extensively about where we are taking Guyana. And sometimes that gets drowned out in the noise surrounding the other issues, personalities, etc. So I hope that people will pay attention to this. Now, several issues have come up over the last time I spoke with you. And let me make it clear that we are campaigning on our track record, on the vision, and on the quality of our candidates. Donald Ramotar is our presidential candidate. Donald Ramotar will be or remain the president of this country. Elizabeth Harper will be the prime minister. And in spite of what they say about me, because there seems to be this obsession, I have one objective in mind. That is to support the party, to outline its policies, its vision for the future, and to speak things often that are happening, but maybe some others are a bit reluctant to say. And they would prefer we sweep under the carpet. That's not how I am. But it's not about Jack Dale. And so even when I say something, I see this almost a daily obsession with me. And when I don't say anything, there seems to be a daily obsession why I'm not saying anything. So let me deal with a couple of things that we've suffered from. And the people of this country need to understand that we're fighting two opponents now. The opposition, the combined opposition, and elements of the media. Elements of the media. So take, for example, the iNews recently. iNews carried a report. I was at home and I saw massive opposition women's rally. So I said, really? I asked myself, really? When did this happen? It had not happened as yet. It was to take place the same night, but already the headline was massive opposition rally. Then I looked at the same media house reporting our rally and speaking about hundreds. Now, clearly, this can't be accurate. This can't be fair. I just single out one instance because there are several others. Let me tell you, today's paper, the Kaieteur News, said that I said that there is a $40 million loss in the sugar industry. No, it's not $40 million loss. It's $40 million reduction in revenue because of the cut in sugar prices. And I didn't say that we were producing 900,000 tons of sugar, and now we're down to 600,000 tons. I was talking and that it has moved from 10 million to 250 million. I was speaking about the rice industry, not sugar. And I said that it has moved from 90,000 tons to over 600,000 tons, not 900,000. There's a big difference. 90,000 to 600,000, and that we were exporting over 500,000 tons of rice now to 33 countries, and that the industry has moved from a $10 million industry in 1990 to a 250 million US dollars industry, $250 million. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. But this is not unique, because I suspect on a daily basis they're going to continue doing this. They have done this in so many other cases, and maybe we can talk a little bit about those later. So we're fighting two campaigns now. Campaign against the media, some elements of the media, and we're fighting against the combined opposition. But fortunately, the truth will prevail. So I just want to focus on a couple of other things before I open up the floor for questions. First of all, I see them running an ad about Jack Doe legacy. Now, the Jack Doe legacy is a PPP legacy. So I can't be separated from the PPP because this is the legacy of my party. When we speak about Ramatara, we will say it is his period in office, that it is our legacy too. So they have a ton of things. But let me tell you, if they want to talk about our legacy, I can tell you what the PPP legacy is. The PPP legacy, including Jack Doe legacy, the 12 years I was there, has been one where we took a country that was bankrupt and today made it into the most dynamic economy in the Caribbean. Is it our fabrication that it is the most dynamic economy in the Caribbean? Look to the Caribbean Development Bank report, look at the IMF report, you will see that they themselves describe this. We took a $300 million economy, and today it's over $3 billion. The country was using 94% of revenue to service debt. Today it's down to 4% of revenue. The interest rates were 35%. Today people can borrow at 4.5% low income and about 12 on average, 12 to 16, depending on how strong you are as a private borrower. The aggregate deposits, this is people putting money in the banking system, has increased over 25 times. That is people's wealth in the banking system. Private sector credit has grown enormously. Our fiscal deficit has come down from 25% of GDP today to less than 5% of GDP. We have now about $700–800 million of reserves in the bank, or very little in the past, in the central bank. The balance of payment deficit was 47% of GDP at one time. Every 2 years, we were doubling our debt with the rest of the world. Today, it's been almost in surplus in some years, and it's financing 10% of GDP in other cases. That's only on the economic side. We have had the largest expansion in housing in my tenure alone. Forget the whole PPP period, but my tenure alone than in the entire history of Guyana since independence. We have had, in my tenure alone, more people going on scholarships than the entire period from 1966 to when we took over, going on scholarships abroad. That is what I like to think is my legacy. We have more schools, better schools, and I can list them across the country. We have new hospitals in Linden, in New Amsterdam. We have new housing schemes at Diamond and Providence and Amelia's Ward and Fowles and Block 22 and so many other places across the country at Bath Settlement, etc. I would like to think that's my legacy and PPP legacy too. There was a period, their legacy at that time Their legacy was to give us a 40 years monopoly with GT&T, which was privatized without no public tender. Absolutely, one of the biggest companies in the country was privatized with no public tender, with a 40 years monopoly given to the company, and advisory fees, 6% on gross revenue. We managed to find a loophole and gave Digicel a license. It was our legacy too, and that brought in greater competition. Today, you have over maybe 600,000 cell phones. You remember the days when nobody had a cell phone. And we like to think that's our legacy, and we like to think that the 120-something thousand people who didn't have electricity when we took office, that's our legacy. And we like to think that all the Amerindian communities that didn't have electricity now getting a solar panel, that's our legacy too. As well as the schools for Amerindian children in the interior, in the secondary school, secondary education. We'd like to think that those things are a legacy. And we'd like to think that Georgetown, as bad as it is now, the roads, at least you can drive on them. That's the PPP legacy too, because we fixed it. Not allow the city council, which is controlled by them, to do that. And we'd like to think that all of the businesses that are going up now is because people have confidence in this country, they're investing. Look how many investments are taking place. Drive through the city, and they can't be drug money because they like to think that everything goes up in this country. The 5,000 houses in Diamond can't be drug money that people put in, build their houses. You can't disappear that. And we like to think that the Berbice Bridge and the campus in Berbice and the stadium and the track and the hotel, these are our legacies too. So not a couple of issues that you pluck out. The country has been changed considerably. There are more businesses today, more private businesses. And I see recently that the media again, the hostile media, is a big issue about one man who I gather already lives abroad, saying if we win, he will migrate. Well, I have a statement from another guy here, press release from Rajkumar, who they said the same thing about him. Another person who's been investing in Guyana, he issued a statement saying it's absolutely untrue, that the opposition should desist from saying this about him. Here is the statement. I don't see this statement getting the same prominence as the other statement. And if one person says that they will go away if the PPP wins, you have to talk to the majority of the people here. Ask Badal if he will go away if the PPP wins. Because from what I gather, he's been expanding here. Ask him if he will go away if the PPP wins. And you want to bet he says no, because he makes all of the money just here in Guyana, and most of it under the PPP, because he used to walk with a shirt and pants and come to the office of the Ministry of Finance when he had absolutely nothing in the early days, when he was just shipping a couple tons of rice to Jamaica. That is what he started from, entire wealth. So ask him if he will migrate. And a lot of those others. I don't want to go on to others. So what is this big hullabaloo about one man saying, who doesn't live here, I'll migrate if the PPP wins? Tons and tons of people make a lot of money in the business community here. That's why they're saying. I remember one man who left Guyana and went to Trinidad and Tobago and said he's leaving Guyana. He came back after a year, opened back his business here, because this country is producing wealth for a lot of people. And there are tons of opportunities here. So forget this big hullabaloo. And I ask the media to have a sense of perspective. I know that they're part of this campaign, but talk to other people too. One man who doesn't live here doesn't make the season. No, it's a single swallow. And so let's talk. I can go on about legacy. I can spend another 40 minutes. I can list a ton of things, but I guess I've spoken quite a bit, enough about that. Let me tell you about how the media, again, focuses. So I see today, Edgehill had to respond in a press conference that he didn't change his name to avoid some murder charge, that it's fake, it's not true. But the president said on the platform that 3 persons on the opposition list were charged with murder. How come that doesn't become the story? So rather than that becoming the story, I don't see any major headlines. It's tucked away quietly in stories, major headlines, and someone asking Granger, why did you put 3 persons who were charged for murder on your list? Because they love to talk about quality of list. The response was fabricate something about Edgehill, obfuscation, deflecting, and it's being helped again by the media. It's being helped again by the media. So a lot of these things, we have been, you know, I have absolutely no confidence in this MMU. Unless the MMU reports to GCOM, because it's GCOM that received the funding for the MMU, GCOM should be able to have oversight on the MMU. Absolutely no confidence. But because they're never gonna deal with these issues. There are numerous cases of distortion, the intimidation of reporters. Look, I saw another statement from a reporter from the Kaichor News who was intimidated, told because he wrote a story that they want to distort, that they distorted, and he complained about it. They told him take a break until after the elections. How come the Media Association doesn't raise this as an issue now? Of course, if it was government, then you'll be seeing a huge outcry about this. How come that doesn't happen? And how come the Media Monitoring Unit doesn't say anything when Adam Harris openly admitted here in the presence of a number of people that he changed the headline to say that Glenn Lal told him to change the headline to say that I said and Rohi said that that PPP is a Koli party. How come they don't say anything about that? Adam Harris was here, he admitted to that. He said, Glenn Lal, he doesn't control the stuff. Glenn Lal told him that. Why? And so there is nothing. Our base, our supporters know what we are faced against. And I would say this to them. Understand what we are faced with. We are fighting 2 oppositions now. So when you read the stories, make sure that you read between the lines, because we're never going to get a fair shake from a few people. But in spite of all of that, I think it will not work. Now, maybe I should end there. Maybe I should just end there and give you a chance to ask some questions. Yeah. But before I do that, because I like to talk, I just brought you some good reading. Here is a copy of the 1992 estimates. You will see that if you go through the estimates, you will get these figures. You can pass this around to the reporters. You will see that the capital budget in 1990 for the Army, guess how much it was? Can you believe this? This is Greenwich presented this. This is not PPP. Greenwich presented this to the Parliament. The capital budget for the Army here was 300,000 Guyana dollars. 300,000 Guyana dollars. At that time, maybe a few thousand US dollars. In 1991, it was 675,000 Guyana dollars for the entire army. For the entire army. In 1992, it was $7 million. $7 million. This Granger, at that time, was the National Security Advisor to the President. Greenidge was the Minister of Finance. Today, they love soldiers so much. They love soldiers and speak about how we discriminate against soldiers and we're not doing enough for soldiers, etc. And this is their record. Shameful. It's in the document he presented. Shameful. A private today, if we convert his salary into US dollars term, just US dollars, so forget the Guyana dollar, he earns more in a year than the entire capital budget of the Army for 1990. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. A private, the lowest level in the Army today, his salary is more than the entire capital budget for the Army. And you can check it yourselves. Don't ask Jagdeo, don't take Jagdeo's word for it. Ask Greenidge about it because he was the Minister of Finance in charge of allocation money, and ask Granger because he was National Security Advisor at that time. In the last 5 years alone, the capital budget of the Army has been about $2.6 billion. $2.6 billion in the last 5 years alone. If you want to do it in US dollars, it would be probably, what, 600 times, maybe, no, 2,000 times more. 2,000 times more than the capital budget of the Army. And these are the men who so love the Army and soldiers today. But their record do not prove that. If you look at, if they talk only about my tenure from 1999 to now, the total budget of the Army in 1999 was $1.5 billion. This is not capital. This is capital and recurrent. By the time I left in 2011, it was $6.6 billion, moving from 1.5 to $6.6 billion. That is Jagdeo's tenure in the Army. So today to come about and say that, first of all, that somehow I don't respect military people, they had my full support when I was president. I gave clear instructions to the Chief of Staff. I said, we are allocating money, a special account, to ensure that every soldier leaves the Army with a skill. We should, because they retire very early. I said that this is from the non-officer score. I said officer score must go to the university, that they should leave with a degree. That was my standing instruction. For the police force that had problems with middle-level management, I said to the Army, they said to me the numbers were too great. I said to them, let's train 50 young cadet officers and put them into the police force to strengthen middle-level management. Because then in the next 5 years, they will take over the police force. These are young, bright people who understand modern policing. 49 of them were trained and sent over to the police force. I did the same thing for the prisons and fire. I think it was 10 or 15 each to send to strengthen their middle-level management. They talk about discrimination, and suddenly we don't like soldiers anymore. But it was Jagdeo, who appointed Felix as Commissioner of Police. Felix, we had 4 candidates, sent them abroad for training. There was an Indo-Guyanese among the 4 too. When I look at the report, I said, okay, who am I going to choose? Which is the best of the candidate? I chose Felix at that time. There was Felix. Collins was appointed Chief of Staff under me. Gary Best was appointed Chief of Staff under me. It must be, we gotta be crazy that people, we discriminate so much, and these are the people who we appointed to head the army. And if we were so bad, why didn't they refuse to serve under the PPP? Why did they not refuse at that time? I also appointed McDonald and the last commissioner, Green, Henry Green. If you talk about it, it's 5 Afro-Guyanese to head the army and the police. When we talk about, if you talk discrimination, because today that's what they wanted to talk about. They talk a lot about. 5 of them. And if I say the reason why that Mr. Collins the reasons he gave me why Gary Best should not be the Chief of Staff, which I ignored, then maybe Gary Best would remain quiet today. Gary Best will remain quiet today. But I think maybe Collins was right. Maybe Collins was right. And the thing is, I know when Gary Best came over to the office of the president, met with myself on luncheon and complained how he was sidelined, etc. But I don't want to get into those details. I don't want to get into those details. But what are they doing? They're basically sending if you're all the time, you're in the army police and you say you're a professional and the government is so bad, why hold the top position and take all of the illegal instructions that we're ostensibly supposed to give them? And then the day you leave, suddenly you shift focus. You know what they're doing? They're destroying trust in the executive. How could the executive trust anyone in the future? How could the executive trust people to act professionally? That is what they have done. That is what I'm opposed to. So my record on assisting soldiers, it's in the numbers. They can't beat that. The numbers. I'm prepared to look at the numbers. They didn't have to eat white rice every day and porridge made from rice all the time, as they used to do that many of them know about, the same three who are on the other side. They know about that. And we sought to rebuild the army, the dignity of the army, the professionalism of the army. We never gave illegal instructions. We never asked them to come and support the PPP, as was done in the past where they had to pledge loyalty to the PNC that Granger defended. And that is the professionalism that I'm talking about they're going to subvert. Because I believe that the army and police will come under serious pressure to go back to those days. And when illegal instructions come, like in the past, when the army was forced to take ballot boxes, and that's established from people contrary to the Defense Act, contrary to our Constitution. They were forced because of political purposes, and Granger was the critical link between the army at that time and the office of the president. He reported directly to the office of the president. He was the one defending the paramountcy of the party. Already he has made a statement which says that when we get into office, the AFC and the PNC will decide what to do with the voters list. Now, this has nothing to do with the AFC and PNC. It has to do with GCOM. But if they do that and they subvert the electoral process, and when they drag people from their homes again who try to defend that, who is going to stop them? Who is going to stop them again? And that is because that is the direction we're taking. Dangerous direction of the already threats. He's going to deal with the voters list when he gets into government. trying to say to the soldiers, suddenly we have your interests at heart. When he was there, he did nothing for soldiers. In fact, he subverted the professionalism of the army by forcing them to pledge loyalty to the party in government, not the state. Not the state. They were forced to take ballot boxes. We never asked the army to do any of those. We'll defend the professionalism. So that is my concern. And with these, the recent migration of a few heads of the army into the PNC camp, they've broken trust. A critical element is trust. When the commander-in-chief sits with the chief of staff, they have to have trust among themselves. And they have broken that, because one day everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. You're working with us, etc. And the next day, the day after you leave, suddenly you become bad. Suddenly, the executive becomes discriminatory, although your job was due to the same executive that you got to head the security forces. I have nothing, the soldiers know that. The police know that. In all the years I've been there, never asked them to do anything illegal. And my record, my legacy with soldiers and the army is with the numbers. It's what I ask the leadership of the army to do, to make sure that soldiers leave the army with proper job or a skill. I can take any one of them on, the chief of staff, and I know tons of things too. I just choose not to talk a lot about these things because I believe that issues of the Defense Board and state secrets must remain there. But I have tons of things that would question now, in retrospect, how the fight against criminals was conducted. I have a few instances that I can question, and now maybe in retrospect I'm thinking that there was no real desire to go after those criminals, that we may have been subverted, and that this country suffered a lot. And we could have probably avoided Lusiktan and Bartika and many other things. I'm not going to talk about Mr. Felix and tape and all of that. I'm not going to talk about it. But my piece is that he already let the numbers speak for themselves. And please don't let Granger get away from this one and Greenwich. Don't allow him to get away from the housing thing. Up to now, he said, if they think I'm corrupt, go to the police. Well, if they think we're corrupt too, if that is his explanation, why don't they go to the police rather than spread tons of rumors? These are just some of the matters that I wanted to talk about.
All right. Yes, you have Starbucks News. Who else after that? One per media now, right? Starting with Pushpa.
Yes, Pushpa Bhagavan, Starbucks News. You had mentioned it again, but as a former commander-in-chief of the armed forces, how can you justify stating that if APNU and AFC got into power, there'd be a risk of military invading people's homes? Isn't this the worst form of scaremongering?
No, I think I spent some time explaining it. Let me explain. The migration of the military to the APNU camp. I know what has happened. People were dragged away from homes because of their belief, what they ate, because of what they said in this country. I lived through that era. People were thrown in jail because they criticized the government. People were harassed. They had to get a party card to get a job. I know at that time what happened. I know also that the military was used to subvert democracy because of what I just said about the leadership and Granger's personal involvement in that process. So I'm warning, Granger has not changed. He is not has any contrition about the past. He's unapologetic about that past. I fear a return to that future, that with Granger there as president, surrounded by these ex-military, that's why I said these military people, surrounded by them, one, they will subvert, first of all, the professionalism of the army, as they did in the past, and they will come for people. I believe we'll return to those dark days. That's my real, honest belief. And I say to people, guard against this. Don't vote for them. So that is my sincere belief. Everything that they have said, it's always about sending people away, dealing with this person when we get into office. It's the language already of fear and intimidation that they're using. I have absolutely no doubt that they will subvert the professionalism of the army, or at least try that, because they did it in the past. They have a record of doing that. Soldiers should not fetch ballot boxes and fetch away ballot boxes from polling stations and shoot at people, but they had to do it because they were subverted. They were subverted. That is my fear. And they will come after people again. Businessmen are going to be bullied in this country. We know what used to happen. People used to go to their stores, ask the businessmen who were here. They used to go to their stores, collect all their goods, send it to a place on Vicention Road, and they had to go there and buy back those goods. I forgot the name, Gainas or some, not Gainas, it was just at where Popeye is. There was a place there. Seize their goods, carry it there, and go back. I believe, using the police and army, I believe it could happen again. So I will keep warning people not to go back to that past. I have great respect for the military. They have always had my support, and the support is reflected in numbers. I've supported military men throughout, and they will tell you this. But I am fearful that their independence, their professionalism will be subverted if Granger becomes the president of this country. Yeah. No, just I come back to that.
Okay.
One question at a time.
Yeah. Yvonne Stephen Bakery, Frontline News. Now, you spoke extensively about the appointment of Mr. former Chief of Staff Gary Best, and you said that there was some sort of opposition for his appointment. Now, are you saying now that you kind of regret hiring him as Chief of Staff? He went over to the acting MC coalition?
No. I see Mr. Collins is there, and also Gary Best. They're in the opposition camp together. And I know, and the country knows, that Collins was opposed to the appointment of Gary Best as Chief of Staff. He didn't show up, I think, to the parade, the passing out parade, and even to the handover. So I'm saying I know what his assessment of Gary Best was. And I said, maybe he was right. All I'm saying is maybe he was right. That's all I'm saying. And so that is all I'm going to say, because he was opposed to it. The same two persons who are there now. He was opposed to it. And that was no secret in Guyana. Everybody knew that. That's all I'm going to say. And by the way, Gary Best lives in Pradoville, the scheme that I live in. And he has a beautiful house too. A big house, and wouldn't you ask him, and his salary is probably half of mine, maybe even less. Wouldn't you want to ask him how he got his money to build his house? Why don't you ask that? You know? You should. It should be interesting answer. Anyhow, let's move on.
Larry Tyson. Mr. Jack, you hinted that you probably know, I'm just putting in my words, that you probably know of some things that the former Army Chief would have done. Why did you were the Commander Chief in the Army, why did you not make this public?
Huh?
Why did you not take actions?
Did you just heard what I said? you got a penchant for distorting things, but let me say,
Could you clarify that? sir?
yeah, I don't have to clarify anything. Let me just say that I started off my statement by saying that in retrospect, things that I probably took as innocent, in retrospect, now knowing I know now what has just happened, that I'm reassessing a lot of those events in light of this new information, the new framework. That's all I'm saying. Let's move on.
Yes, very good.
Hold on, come back to you.
Any other new person?
Okay, push.
I want to go back to my previous question. I wanted to follow up on it. Doesn't your statement show a level of disrespect for the servicemen and women?
No, absolutely not.
It-
I support the military. I support the police. I've been on record as praising them many times. People thought I've gone overboard in doing this. I'm concerned that their professionalism will be subverted. I'm concerned that they'll be asked to do things that they should not do as in the past. I'm concerned that political commissars will be appointed, not real soldiers coming up through the ranks, but political commissars will be appointed to steer the army in a direction if APNU gets into power. I know about tons of the people who came through the YSM and the PNC in those years. They had accelerated promotion in the army, bypassing many real soldiers, hard-working soldiers. I know of this. It is a huge fear of mine that what we've sought to build, a professional army with a large reserve, a small professional army, a large reserve, distant from the executive, following only lawful command, that will be subverted, because the same people who subverted that independence of the army, they're resurfacing again, and Mr. Granger helped to do that. How could you not see that he was the political commissar from the office of the president over in the army? He was a political commissar. He was the one conducting classes, the ideological orientation of the army. Ideological orientation. He was the one defending paramountcy of the party, that the army must pledge the loyalty to the party. How could this not be a fear of every Guyanese? How could it not be a fear of every soldier? What about the soldiers who are working hard there? The day, if heaven forbids they win, who is going to go over there? Who are they going to send? Who are they going to send? Can a commissioner of police or function again independently? Or are we going to see a new wave of people who go in with party cards, topping the police and the army and displacing the leadership? So that is my fear. And it should be the fear of entire Guyana. It should be the fear of the soldiers. But my record about support to the army is in this. And the police too. I didn't talk about the police, but my record is in the numbers. You can't lie about that. You can lie about everything, but you can't lie about your numbers. Ask him, did he ask the president at that time, when he was National Security Advisor, did he make a case for more money for the soldiers and for their capital? They run down the army. Did Greenidge, why did he put such low sums there? Ask them these questions. How is it today that we hate this army so much? We hate the army, and they have tons and tons more resources, much better off. Yes. No, that's two. Any? Huh? Yeah.
Of the statement, of your opening statement, I want question out of that. What you said.
Anything.
Any question?
Any question. You can ask me any question. You don't have to confine yourself to anything. You can ask. Even the rumors that you hear, a lot of them that you spread around to, not you personally, but sorry. I mean, I shouldn't say collectively. Some people spread. All right, yes. Oh, it's Starbuck News too? Okay. I just dealt with. All right.
What do you say, what is the party's position on Minister Barry Ramsaran's confrontation with a woman in front of the Women Magistrate Court on Monday?
Well, first of all, personally, I think it should have never happened. It's distasteful. And we should never say anything about anyone, particularly women, that way. And I saw they said that I beat my wife. You can ask her. Let me make it clear to everyone, I've never touched, physically abused a single woman in my entire life, including my ex-wife. So that is clear. I can say it here. Never, ever done that. I fought with my older sisters when they used to beat me up a few times, but when I was about 10 years old. And outside of that, never, ever touch a single woman. So I gather Barry Ramsaran has said he just apologized for this. Clement Rohi speaks on behalf of the People's Progressive Party. He's made that clear to you here, that he speaks on behalf of the party, but the party does not condone any disparaging things said about women, especially if it's done in a way that seems sexist. He claimed he was provoked. He called on the police, but in spite of that, he should not have said anything of that nature. We have condemned the attack on Elizabeth Harper, and we should condemn the attack on any female. And I urge the media to also look at some others who have made very nasty statements about women, and please go with them, after them with the same zeal as you're doing on this matter. Huh? I don't want to get into, they say I talk about too many people, so, and I just give them prominence, but I don't want to talk too much about it.
Yes. That's on Daniel Skytra News. At your last press conference here, you indicated that you were not interested in any public or constitutional post. In fact, you were very vehement when you said that you would not be on the PPP's ticket on nomination day. So how is the Guyanese public supposed to trust you when after you were so earnest in your statement, you backtracked on your words probably a week later?
Well, I think my trust has been there. One, let me tell you about trust. Skytra News and the others had a campaign that Jagdeo will never leave the presidency. He will not leave when in 2011 I left. They should trust me because we have the most progressive constitution in the world today that gives more voice to the opposition that they can use to stymie the appointment of the Chief Justice, the Chancellor, a whole range of things that I signed into law. Can trust me because we promised people in our campaign to do a number of things. We promised them to take university education to Berbice, promised to build the Berbice Bridge, we promised to expand healthcare, housing, etc. I've kept my faith with people. I made it clear I had no intention of going on the list. I did not want to go on the list. I came here. I had to be utterly stupid to had an intention to go on the list and then come here a week before and say no, that I'm not going to do it. Utterly stupid to do that. I explained to the media that after I made the public statement, there were a number of our supporters who came and said, are you disassociating yourself from us? What signal are you sending to our base that you don't want to be on the list? Is it you don't want to be associated with the PPP? I thought about it carefully because I had made that statement, but I decided that I needed to send a strong signal to the base of the PPP that I'm fully behind Ramatar and Elizabeth Harper and the campaign to win the elections. And I gave an explanation to the public. So I know I don't have a trust issue in our base. I may have a trust issue in Kaichor News and a couple other places, but really, in the big scheme of things, they don't matter, because even if I were, I don't want to say Jesus, but even if I were like God come down on earth, let's use a generic term, and there will be, tomorrow, they will find something to say about me negative. In fact, they're fabricating things every single day. They said $42 million is spent on the cable. It's not $42 million, it's $8 million. I have a couple of things here that by Shanlin, I gave by Shanlin, Kaichor News again, 3.5 million acres of land. By Shanlin doesn't have that. In fact, significantly less than 1 million, less than what Barama got under the PNC. But guess what? It was Jagdeo also that tied up an arrangement with Norway that earned us $150 million US that is committed to preserving 99.5% of our forests. How could I be giving away to these Chinese all of these concessions to cut down all the trees and then still commit to preserving 99.5% of the forest? And every year, before we receive any payment, for the last 3 years, Norway sends in people from abroad to measure the change in forest cover. And it's done with satellite imagery, etc. We got to be utterly stupid, or they have to think that the Guyanese people are stupid. So we're giving away all these people our land to rape the forest, and yet we're preserving 99.5% of the forest. Which other country in the world has committed to that? I don't have a trust issue with the people in our base. I don't have a trust issue with most of Ghana. I got a trust issue with a couple of people in the newspapers and stuff. And really, at the end of the day, I don't want to seem arrogant, but at the end of the day, people will judge them for what they are. Hostile to us. Hostile. Yeah.
The billboards and campaign paraphernalia have been damaged. What's the party's position?
I think it's an act of desperation. I think that they're damaging our paraphernalia. I say to our comrades, leave them alone. I saw in Pradoville, they did a night, they brought from the road right up to by my residence, and then they go to all the PPP supporters, and then they put some flag in front of them. I think it's a kind of intimidation. Of course, that wouldn't intimidate me, like Christopher Ram is trying to do to muzzle me too. That would not. But they're doing this around the country. They're intimidating people. The act of violence in Berbice, rather than being condemned by everyone outright, including all the media houses, some sought to make excuses that it never happened. I was still in Berbice when the incident took place. We received a call. I saw Minister Rohi speaking with the commander. The head of Gaisuko from Skelton Estate went to the people's home. I spoke with the guy who was on the truck. He said the people there, they picked them up, took them to the hospital. The doctor said to me, yes, I treated them. I asked, can I speak to these people? I spoke to all 3 of them. The night coming down back, are you okay? Etc. And then some people tried to disappear the whole incident as though it never happened. because I was still in Berbice. I thought it was because once they said the acid was thrown in the truck, I thought it would have been more, like more people would have been hurt. So I was a little, concerned. I called several people. And then I spoke with the 3 persons after they have received treatment. How should this not be condemned by everyone, rather than some members of the media, including some on Facebook, trying to make the incident look like it never happened? It never happened. This is the kind of thing, the double standards, the duplicity that takes place. These campaigns, people should be free to post their paraphernalia everywhere and not have them destroyed. People should be able to campaign in every village, whether the opposition, they get supported or support from that village or not, or any ward in the city without being intimidated, like our people were intimidated in Sophia. People should be free to go to rallies and not have to worry about, people stoning them, etc. That's dark ages politics. That's the kind of culture that we have to develop in Guyana. And by the way, on the Christopher Ram issue, I think if they can start, I think I need to talk to not just PPP supporters, but also other people who don't support us. If they try to muzzle me, they don't want me to speak on the campaign, using courts and whatever means they would. If they can try to muzzle me, when your turn comes around, again, I say to them, who is going to defend you? They're not going to use the apparatus of the state as liberally as we have done, where you can have a free media, and you can have some of them all day cussing the government, and they don't have to worry at night that somebody will go after them, as has happened in the past, when the head of the TUC at that time, they caught him with a helicopter, carry him over the sea, and threatened to drop him. And when the journalists, Ricky Singh and all the others, had to flee this country, they had to flee because they were writing articles. And when Sharif Khan from Stabroek News was boxed up by someone who was not president at that time, turned out to became president subsequently because he asked an inappropriate question. That is what I'm warning about. That who defends you when that happened. So they're trying to use Christopher Ram to muzzle me now, with the hope that it would be intimidated. I'm told that it is all, his case is frivolous and an abuse of proceedings.
If I could go back to the list, there have been continuing criticisms of the persons listed, the children of party supporters. James Bond the other night made a very serious criticism where he said, the children of the PPP members are going to be the next generation of centipedes and vampires.
Oh, really? And nobody, the MMU doesn't see that. They only focus on Jack. Anyhow, the thing is that I've seen a ton of this sort of thing, disparaging language about people in the PPP or leaders, their children, the women in the PPP, from leading candidates in the opposition. And they get a free pass on all of these comments. Some on Facebook, some in public meetings. They only go to the rallies to listen to what's going on, but you should go to some of the public meetings and you'll hear the vile language used against many supporters. So it is not new, but we should condemn it. Now, the whole issue of people, and their children. I see the PPP list as a list in its entirety. We met our constitutional requirement to put 1/3 women on the list. The opposition didn't do that. They're either incompetent, as I said the last time, totally incompetent. You can't even meet a constitutional requirement, because if you don't meet it, your list will get rejected, and you submit a list of that nature. Totally incompetent. Or you don't have any faith in the woman in your party. But let's look at their list too. I heard Granger has one of his relatives on the list. I heard Rupert Roopnaraine daughter is on the list. Cathy Hughes and Nigel Hughes, her husband and wife, on the list. There are a few others I was told about that I can't remember. Now, let me look at a couple of people. I saw it, Sham Nokta was mentioned. Sham Nokta's father was in the PPP, but Sham Nokta has been doing political work for the last 10 years. Sham Nokta is one of the brightest environmentalists in the country. Why? This is a young professional. Should he not have an expectation also that if he works hard, that he will come on the list, just like the 30 other young professionals who are now related to PPP members are on the list? You know, let's look at other people. Almost all of these are young professionals. So what if Luncheon Daughter wants to follow him into the PPP? So what? If Luncheon Daughter, does it mean that we're excluding all the others? We have tons of young doctors also on the list. And our record at training young people is exemplary. We're the ones who sent over, in my tenure alone, over 1,300 young people abroad to study. Now they're back as young professionals. We probably have now the strongest core of young professionals in Guyana than any time in our history. So what's wrong with young people playing a role? But that is the only thing that they could have said, because when Dr. Luncheon criticized them about the lack of diversity on their list, I think they had to once again shift the attention to the PPP and focus on it.
If a clarification very quickly, you said what's wrong if the children follow their parents to support the party.
Yeah.
The criticism that James Bond made was that the parents...
They're worms.
No, he said
or
that
what?
they were, their management and that sort of thing was bad. And if the parents were so bad, then the children would be worse. That's where
Really?
the fetal vampire...
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Okay.
Saying you're judging people by their parents. I think if the sugar workers want their kids to study medicine, then they shouldn't. Or to study, like, just get a degree. Because the James Bond, like what you're saying, James Bond would think that they'd be, you know, they wouldn't be eligible for any position because their fathers or and mothers are sugar workers, or rice farmers, or bauxite workers for that matter, or public servants. If they're cleaners or security guards, they must not aspire to educate their children, because heavens forbid they get a position or they get some position or be on some list, because they must be judged by their parents, you know. That is the philosophy they have. We don't believe in that. We believe that every generation should progressively do better. And we believe that some of the kids will have the requisite skills, not just PPP kids, but I could show you 30 young professionals on our list. 30 young professionals who will any day compete with anyone because they have the brain power, the capability to do so with anyone in the country. Does that mean that our party excludes other professionals? We embrace them. There are tons of people, young professionals who are not on the list, who don't want to go on the list, who come in here every day to Freedom House to work. Every day tons of them walk off the street and say, how can I help? How can I help? And they're helping us now, doing lots of things. So I don't subscribe to that. Oh, I have a long list of family and friends in the opposition list. A long list of family and friends, but let me don't waste my time on it. A long list of.
Could
Yes.
you expand a little briefly on the development fund, particularly in the East and
Supplement said that it will be from the consolidated fund. We have in the past created special funds for developing or special incentive regimes for the development of different areas. So when I went to Linden once when I was Minister of Finance, we came back and we said, Ituni, Kwakwani, Linden itself were all in the doldrums because of the problems we had in the bauxite industry. That was before we got the investment from Rusal and from the Bosai. And so we needed to create a new type of new jobs. So we said we can use the forestry industry there. So we managed to create these community forest development programs, etc. And we put in the budget that if you invest in Region 10, you will be given concessions that are different than if you invest in other parts of the country. Special incentive regime. And we managed to get the European Union to fund the LEAF program, which invested in infrastructure like West Watuka Road to open up agricultural lands in West Watuka. We then put in place a small credit scheme for microcredit and stuff so that farmers could benefit from that. So we have experience at doing that sort of thing. So the development fund now, we're extending it to the other regions. Outside of that, let me give you the Amerindian areas now in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. We have now over 150 community development plans that were developed by the community that we are funding through the Low Carbon Development Strategy, the GRIF Fund. So they will have a specialized focus now on creating food security and like more income and jobs for people who live in those areas, the Amerindian areas. So those areas are taken care of. Then we found that Essequibo and Berbice agricultural base, so still a problem in Region 5. So they still have a problem with generating new types of jobs like manufacturing, IT jobs, other kinds of jobs outside of agriculture. So this is why we decided that these special development funds will catalyze that sort of investment. So take, for example, if we want to create jobs for young people in Essequibo Coast, many of them who are finishing school there, they don't have opportunities, they can't go into farming. We can then say, take the fund and build a factory shell. We can then subsidize, say, the bandwidth. So we look for an investor, we advertise for an investor who with the subsidized factory shell, that is for IT purposes, and not factory, but like one of these call centers, will then invest, get the contract, and start operating it. We believe we can generate thousands of jobs in the region through co-sharing the tax system and through co-sharing the costs to catalyze these investments in those regions. So that is the kind of thing. It will be publicly tendered. We'll get tons of, I guess, interest because already people are interested. So if someone wants to do not just that, but a manufacturing entity up there that will generate jobs, then they can apply to the fund too and get it. That's how we envisage it working. No more. You had two, yes.
Should the PVPC win the election and it becomes next government, I believe President Ramaphosa said you will be appointed chairman of an economic affairs committee and you will be tasked with overseeing the economic affairs of the country.
No, that's not what he said, but go on, sorry.
Well, could you just
Yes.
clarify what it is and elaborate on if there will be a secretariat and the structure of such a committee?
Okay.
And also, given the fact that you're involved in all of these projects globally, how will you be able to manage this
Yeah.
responsibility now?
Yeah,
and
sure.
broader?
So I made it clear that what I do there, it is not line responsibility. I do not want to be working for the government of Guyana. I have a lot of engagements abroad. Some are quite lucrative, and I want to do some of this work. I am prepared to give some of my time to Guyana to head a commission. The commission would not replace the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance is responsible for the managing of the economy. The way I see it is this commission would help. In fact, we have cleared the terms of reference already. That would help to see that our resources are programmed expeditiously. So loans, grants, etc., the identification of the project. So if we are going to build, say, a road from Bartica to Parica, the old Del Conte road, that we program the resources, we look for financing for those to make sure that we can move it expeditiously. It is to ensure that once the capital program, we had a high implementation rate, and then we had some issues, to see that the government capital program is moving along. But I'm not going to be tendering or tracking, like running down after a project, etc. To look at the helping to streamline government business processes so business community can get more attention faster. To market Guyana in a way that we can hopefully get more investment. So to talk to people about that, etc. That sort of thing. So the way I see it operating is that is the President has cleared the terms of reference. It will be commission, and there will be about 5 other members on the commission, and just a few, maybe 3 or 4 staff, and to track these, and then we'll report once every 2 weeks to the President. We'll send him a report, and once every 3 months to have a discussion with the cabinet. I don't want to sit in cabinet or anything of that sort, just to see that the economy, assist with the economy keep moving, and to make sure that our resources are moving in the right direction. So that's how I see it operating. I'm disengaging on a lot of the international work that I did. Quite a bit of that I've disengaged from too, so I can have more time just here in Guyana, because I want to visit communities. Like I went to Essequibo Coast, and I spoke with the rice farmers there, and they were misled about the Petrocaribe. The AFC, for 3 months, the AFC and PNC, and there's no AFC anymore because there's one list, so why do I mention that? But they went to the Essequibo Coast, and they said to people, the government is taking your money to subsidize the government. So I had at my meeting 2 gentlemen showed up with little black books in which stuff were written for them, and they said, one started off by saying, the country exports $50 billion of rice, and the government takes 40% of it and put it in the central bank and to subsidize. So I said, hold on a minute. But this is what they've been telling the rice farmers on the Essequibo Coast. They're saying the government is taking some money from the rice industry, and that we have all this money, we can pay $10,000 a bag because we're taking it from the rice industry to subsidize government. Even our supporters felt that that was true. And then I had to explain that Petrocaribe it has nothing to do with the rice industry. That Petrocaribe is an oil credit facility that Guyana got. That the money that we got on credit, we kept it, we didn't enter our reserves. It's kept by the central bank in a separate account. So when the government appropriates funds, so say Hope Canal, we're building Hope Canal, and then I said it was only the Hope Canal we used it for, but there are a couple of other projects since I left that were used for. The power plants, the power plant here, and I think a $10 million was used for the revolving home ownership program. So those are the three projects from what I gathered. But I said it was used for only the Hope Canal. Now what happens is we appropriate the funds. We go to Parliament, we put it in the budget, and then it's used here. The money is used from these facilities. It enters basically the system. It could be treated as local financing, because that's how most Caribbean countries treat this, as local financing. They use it for balance of payment, purposes, etc. It comes in a way that it is not earmarked. If you take a loan from the IDB, it's earmarked for a road. If you take a loan from the World Bank, it's earmarked for a project. In this case, it is a credit facility, so you can use it to fund everything. We took all of the money. Let me get back to the main point. I just wanted to give that to correct that impression, because I had said it was just for Hope, but it was used in two other cases. So we have this credit facility, the money is there, and we decided to use it to support the rice industry. So after I met with Chavez and we worked out a deal, they met subsequently at the foreign minister level. What happens is that every time a shipment of rice goes to Venezuela, and assuming they have to pay $50 million US or $10 million US, they don't pay anything. We take 10 million from the account and we pay it to the farmers. And then they cancel the debt instrument that they hold for us up to $10 million. So the debt gets reduced by 10 million. What it means essentially is that we're not taking the credit, we're prepaying or we're paying for oil proceeds almost fully. So that is how it works, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the rice industry. We just use it to support rice. But there was a huge distortion. Yes, you wanted to say something?
I just want a little bit of clarification just on that point. Wouldn't the 15 million though have things attached to it for the appropriation of the funds? So you couldn't necessarily just use it whimsically however you pleased, or you can use it that way?
No, but nothing is done whimsically, because every cent that you spend has to be appropriated. There's statutory expenses that once you present them, they're approved, and then you have some that which the opposition can cut because it's statutory, and then there are some that they have to vote for. So the budget is passed, so the budget will say $15 million on Hope Canal. Then there are three sources of financing for the budget: revenue, grants, and loans. There are, in loans, there are earmarked loans. So a loan that is earmarked for a road can only be used for a road. And then in this case, it's unearmarked funds. So you still have to account, the central bank keeps an account, but then $15 million get transferred to the Treasury, the Accountant General, to finance this particular project. So it is appropriated first. And then when you report to Parliament, you have to report back on it. So that is how it operates, because I see a lot of confusion on how things are reported sometimes, because the mechanism sometimes is not clear to people, and even the reporters, some reporters. And so we get a lot of confusion because of this. But for me, there is great clarity, because it's audited funds. It's audited, it's appropriated, and then subsequently it has to be audited, including the account. So I just wanted to say that, yeah. Yes, please.
Saint Samuel, Kaisha News.
Mhm.
Now, your party has unveiled plans to inject at least $20 billion into the sugar industry.
Yeah, sure.
But my question to you is, what guarantees are you giving the people that there will be a turnaround, especially since Gaisuku has been promising a plan and it's not here yet?
Gaisuku does have a plan, It's just they have not met the targets in the plan. They do have a plan, but the big problem is outside of the factory, which I said, Donald said we have to fix. We have to fix the factory and make and the other things about improving the productivity of the fields, so you get more cane, more sugar out of the fields, increasing productivity, enhancing all the factories, not just Skelton, more diversification and a whole range of that. Outside of that, the biggest hit to the sugar industry and our ability to finance a lot of the things we wanted to finance is this $40 million loss in revenue per annum. It's not 40 million losses in the industry, but 40 million loss in revenue, which came about because the European Union cut our sugar prices by 36%. So the industry has had a huge problem adjusting to it. How did the other countries fare? They just walked away from sugar. But even I see Mr. Granger, apparently somebody talked to him and he said, and I agree with him, now belatedly he has come around to the view that sugar is too large to fail. Because sugar is 16,000 people, a major impact not just on the people, but on our balance of payment, on economic life in these regions, etc. So we have embarked, the PNC has been equivocating on this. One time they support the industry, like now, but they don't want us to put money in the industry. Then one time, one of their members said we should shut it down and grow tilapia. Well, they don't know the tilapia market too, but we have made it clear. We're going to have to make it work. We're going to have to make it work. I'm convinced we can get up to 400,000 tons. That will drive down unit cost, the capital cost. This is vital. We have to use some of this, maybe even if we do that, to go the distillery route and the refinery route. You remember we tried the distillery route before. DDL filed a case. It was blocked for almost 12, 13 years. We couldn't proceed with it. That would have made a big difference in the distillery route. We got some help promised from the Prime Minister of India to do that. So we got to make this industry work, and I'm convinced we can do it. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, you wanted this gentleman? He didn't ask any question. Which news are you from? Prime News. Oh, you didn't ask any question, did you? Anybody from your? Okay, please go ahead. I don't want you to think that.
Yeah. With regards to dissemination of the information, there's been a lack of information over certain projects coming from the government to media, conversation,
Sure.
public will be asking questions. So, let's say the government gets back into power. Now, will there be a change in that attitude?
Okay, but the thing is that let me just give you a couple of examples. We had the Marriott. There was a concern expressed that there was no feasibility study done before we signed the contract. So Ashni Singh made available to some members of parliament and to many others the Marriott feasibility study that was done by Marriott itself, and another feasibility study that was done by a group out of Miami. 2 feasibility studies in the public domain before the contract was signed to check if it was feasible. Both said it's feasible. Christopher Ram wrote in the Stabroek News that we did not do a feasibility study before the Marriott was signed. Although this was public knowledge, Ashni Singh spoke about it in Parliament, released it. He took the front page of the 2012 update on the feasibility study of 2010. And he said, look, this is evidence. They didn't do it. They only did it in 2012. That was in the public domain, and he distorted it. So a lot of that info is distorted. The president had several meetings with the entire opposition. The package they got, because I saw that package, was huge like this. all the information, feasibility study, environmental impact assessment, a whole range of things. Came out of the meeting, they said to the president, we're very happy for this briefing. Came out, distorted it. That is what happens a lot. But if you check our manifesto on Saturday when it comes out, you will see a clause there about strengthening the dissemination of information. That is there. And if you check our procurement law, when there was no procurement law of that nature before, it obligates the government, obligates by law. You can go to the court if the government doesn't release information to you, to release all the information on projects. We passed that law. We passed it. So, yes, we're strengthening the processes, but please understand that half of the time, people claim they don't see things. They just do so for political purposes. Thank you. You have that stuff, right? You have it.